Nexium. That was the one that blew me. I had not thought about that, but Nexium, which we think of as a sex cult.
Yeah, Nexium was started by a former Amway distributor. Keith Raniere was in Amway before he did any branding of women and any of that. Eventually he figured out, I'll just do self-help MLM, which is so much easier than having a product.
Welcome back to Hysteria, the podcast that already knew where to buy Mexican Coca-Cola.
Mexican Coke is delicious.
It is. It's better than regular, America Coke.
100%.
100% better. But, isn't it just as bad for you as,
I mean, it's still sugar, high fructose corn syrup and sugar are still sugar, so it's still as bad, but at least Mexican Coke is delicious.
Look, here's the thing. If you're going to do something that's bad for you, you should make sure that it tastes as good as possible, all other things being equal, right? So, if you're going to have Coca-Cola, you just want a full sugar bubbly beverage, get the one that tastes better. Don't pretend it's a health food.
Well, let's not make it Maha, okay? Yeah. It's not Maha. It's it's more Bon Appetit than Maha.
Yeah, it's now we want now we want this country to be more Mexican just with our Coca-Cola. Come on. Come on.
No.
We can't have
Also,
the good
did you know that
Coca-Cola.
we really can't have Mexican Coke here?
Really?
Yeah, America doesn't have the ability to produce that much sugar. It's true.
So we have literally to import it.
All of it, yeah. We have no ability. I saw a whole news story on it. America doesn't have enough sugar to make, based on how much Coca-Cola Americans consume, there's not enough sugar. There's not enough sugar in America.
Mm-hmm. It sort of reminds me of Madeline, I think it was Madeline Dean, who was we can't make bananas here.
Oh, yeah,
they're talking about tariffs.
Yep.
Yeah. It's representative from Pennsylvania, Madeline Dean.
Bananas, sugar.
We can't.
Not here.
Sorry, we can't make coffee great again. We don't have the climate.
Nope.
All right.
Well, maybe soon.
Speaking of Southern,
shit.
No. Last week, Lauren Southern, who, if you don't know who Lauren Southern is, Lauren Southern was a very prominent white nationalist YouTuber who denied being a white nationalist, but you don't get to decide what you are if you're doing the exact same thing. You don't get to be I'm not Santa. Oh, I'm wearing red and I'm going down chimneys and I'm giving presents on Christmas Eve. You're Santa, dude.
I'm not perimenopausal.
Right. Yes, you don't get
Yes,
to...
I am.
Yes. Well, she says she's not, but she is. So since her kind of heyday of being among the queens of the alt-right online, she has since retired from being an influencer. She says she's gotten a divorce. Her husband left her with a small child. She's written, done interviews where she talked about abandoning the trad life. And in listening and reading stuff about her, it's kind of, I feel like she's somebody who got involved in a very hateful ideology at a very young age, and she didn't fully know who she was before she started acting like she did, and she did a ton of damage, and now she's trying to reckon with it. At the same time, now she's got a Substack, which just like everybody, and she released a couple chapters of her forthcoming self-published memoir last week, where she accused Andrew Tate of assaulting her, sexual assault, on a 2018 trip to Romania. I wrote about this for MSNBC, just full disclosure, and basically Andrew Tate has denied that this happened. Andrew Tate has also been charged with crimes in 3 different countries, and many of those crimes including rape, sex trafficking, sex with minor, he's been accused of beating up women in the past. So either all these women are lying or Andrew Tate is. I'll leave that up to our listeners to decide what they think. What I found really interesting, just reading Lauren Southern's account of what happened, and then also kind of looking into her history, because in 2015 she attended a slut walk with a sign that said there's no rape culture in the West, and then yelled about if you want to see rape culture, go to Africa. Yeah.
Wow.
In the past, she's been
good lady.
Yeah, extremely dismissive of the existence of a rape culture. Very doubtful of people, saying try to lionize herself for not naming Gavin McGinnis in an Atlantic story that was meant to be about Me Too and Gavin McGinnis, Proud Boys founder. Anyway, so Lauren Southern has this history of being rape isn't a thing in the West. All these women are whiners. I'm tough, even though this married, much older man was propositioning me left and right back when I was a 22-year-old influencer. And now she's kind of okay, well now everybody needs to believe me. Don't do the thing that I would have done to myself if this happened to someone else. You know what I mean? She's, and in her memoir, she's kind of lamenting the fact that no, I thought men were supposed to protect us. I thought men were supposed to like blah, 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 blah. And you know who hasn't stood up for her in this whole...
Who?
Any of the men that she used to cape for. Like...
That's shocking.
I just think this whole story shows that if you're a woman, turning to MAGA will not protect you. Like...
No, it doesn't. But
or
at
like
the same
far
time,
right. Yeah.
But then is she going to go back? Because like, look, when you just made me think of something when you said back in 2015 she did that slut walk. You know what else happened in 2015? When Trump turned on Megyn Kelly, and he was like, and she had blood coming out of her, whatever. He was so disgusting, and she's back. Fucking, I mean, like she's on the Epstein bandwagon for sure. But aside from that, she's been full pro MAGA. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I just think that it's like the Megyn Kelly thing, the Lauren Southern thing. And even like there was some chatter a couple weeks ago that Pam Bondi would be thrown under the bus over this Epstein thing.
Yeah.
But
she can't.
Second,
she's read the real file.
Right. Well, but the thing is like the second that a woman on the fringe becomes anything but convenient for the fringe, they will discard you. Like you will be discarded. Like that is not the protection thing is a sales pitch to get you to join them so they can use you as justification for hurting people.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
And like it's very frustrating for me to read Southern's account of what she says happened because it's like there's so many moments where it's like you're almost there. Like, you're almost, like, I thought they were supposed to protect us instead of being like, oh, wait, maybe the ideology in the first place, maybe the only way that women are valuable to this ideology is in so much as they are justification for harming and abusing brown people. Like,
right.
Or other women. Like, it's not, like, they don't care about you. Like, they never have cared about you. And they're not going to protect you. If you need them, if one of their bros comes for you and hurts you, they're gonna circle him. They're not gonna help you. Like, and anyway, it's a very frustrating story. And I think Andrew Tate has, adding to the long list of accusations that are very serious that he denies. I just think I don't know how many times something like this needs to happen before women who are like on the right start realizing like there's no place for me here.
No, unless you're just lock, stock, and barrel and you literally don't care. You don't care that they don't care about you.
Unless you're willing to just like completely be subjugated and understand that all the bad things that could happen to you outside of their protection can also happen to you inside of their protection.
Right.
Like it's not protection. It's not a safe place for you. The world is scary and they are not safe. Like,
no.
Hysteria is brought to you by Quince. With summer in full swing, I feel that familiar urge to refresh my closet. It is a familiar urge since 2020 because I've spent pretty much the entire time since the end of like the first stage of pandemic being pregnant or postpartum. And now my clothes are all from the year of our Lord 2019 and before.
New things. New time for new things.
I need some new things, but I don't want to waste money. I don't want to buy trendoid things that are just going to like fall apart while I'm wearing them that I can't. And even if they didn't fall apart, they're just going to be clearly dated within like a year. And that is why I love Quince. Their clothes are timeless. They feel luxurious. They look elevated. The quality is way beyond what you'd expect for the price. It's the kind of wardrobe update that just clicks.
Think 100% European linen tops starting at $30, washable silk dresses and skirts, and soft cotton sweaters. Versatile, warm weather pieces you'll reach for again and again. The best part? Everything with Quince is half the cost of similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Do you know what I love about Quince's summer gear?
What?
The European wide leg linen pants come with different inseams.
Come with different inseams. That is huge.
We both know I'm not tall. We both know I'm not tall. And sometimes I don't want to buy pants that I have to go get tailored because then that takes 2 weeks. Normally I just buy things that are cropped and then they're like full length on me. But I can get like a nice 26-inch inseam. It is incredible. And the mineral blue is lovely. I look like a vision.
You know what people, like the saying, like like women marry somebody that has things in common with their dad. Yep. And it's funny. I didn't realize when I married my husband or when we were like dating that he had this one thing in common with my dad, which is that he wears clothes until they physically are falling off his body.
My pop too.
Quince has been a favorite destination for my husband. And I'm also like, should I buy my dad clothes from here? Because like the men's and like the women's clothes are great, but also like the men's clothes are really good, especially for the type of guy who wears things until they fall apart. And I know that the clothes that Josh has will still look good and they won't look dated until they are physically falling off of him, because the styles are very like classic and timeless. Give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/hysteriapod for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/hysteriapod to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/hysteriapod. Hysteria is brought to you by OneSkin. Something that kind of gives me a bit of a complex in media is watching the Get Ready With Me videos.
I agree.
Because it's like, why are there so many steps to your skincare process?
How early do you get up?
How early do you get, how many like little like bottles of things do you need to take with you when you're traveling? Like, why is your routine? And like, I get it. For some people, that's like meditation, to just like have this series of steps to go through and to like spend the time on themselves. And I totally get that. And I don't want to judge anybody who's like that, but I am not like that.
See, I'm with you. To me, when I think about taking a shower, I'm like, oh God, am I going to wash my hair? Am I going to have to blow dry my hair? When I worked in the White House, I'd be like, you know what? I'd wake up and I'd look at my hair and I'd be like, you know what? I can go another day. And I'd get another 20 minutes of sleep. So Erin, I'm completely with you. I do not need a belabored process. I am not a Duchess, Queen, or socialite.
Well, and that's why I'm a big fan of OneSkin, because it is completely in line with the way that I need to take care of my skin, which is as little as possible. Whilst, like, with as little time as possible, just getting it all done, just quickly, efficiently, and effectively. That is what I'm let's get in, let's get out. OneSkin's proprietary OS1 peptide is the first ingredient proven to switch off the damaged senescent cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and thin, crepey skin. I at first read that as creepy skin, and I was like, oh, that's a mean way to describe my skin. Free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make your skin red, irritated, or itchy, their products are certified safe for sensitive skin, dermatologist tested, and approved by independent testing platforms like SkinSafe.
OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code HYSTERIA at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code HYSTERIA. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Give your skin the scientifically proven gentle care it deserves with OneSkin.
Alyssa, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Erin, let's end this segment of news with something a little delish. Just like the internet, we cannot get enough of the story. It's tickled us. Yes, we're talking about Astronomer CEO Andy Byron, who was caught having an affair with his head of HR, Kristen Cabot, who is also married, at a July 16th Coldplay concert in Gillette Stadium. Gillette Stadium is where the Patriots play, which makes the fact that a cheating scandal unfolded there even more narratively satisfying. Folks, if you're cheating at anything, marriage, football, etc., stay out of Foxborough.
It's true. Don't go to Foxborough. If you're going to do some cheating,
it's
a place
Erin,
to get caught.
I can't get enough of how dumb they are.
Okay. So your take was that you're like, I love this. This is delicious. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes,
Okay.
Because they're dumb. Because what were you thinking? Literally, what have we learned? What have we learned in the past fucking 10 years? If not, CEO and coworker, 1, terrible. 2, head of HR, fucking doubly terrible. How do you sit atop a company and tell people how to behave when you're out with the married CEO who, by the way, I heard the CEO's wife is a fucking lovely human being. Not that it should ever happen to anybody, but I'm just saying I've heard she's lovely.
Yeah.
And they're with people from the company. So it's not even like they were keeping it a secret. And then they acted. Also, this was the part that I thought was the funniest. They acted when they ended up on the kiss cam like they were Madonna and Guy Ritchie. Nobody knew who the fuck you were. You did not have to act like you got busted. But he thought himself so celebrity in his own head that he was like, oh my God, this is like Brad and Angelina on the cover of W. We've been caught, like, no one cares.
I think that's a function of the fact that like tech CEOs more than anything want to be like big movie stars.
Ugh.
They want to be like famous guys. They want to be rock stars, and they fashion themselves like they are. And now it's like, okay, well now people care when you have a big public affair. Like that's what you get. You don't get to be a rock star like, oh,
No.
Like you get to be somebody who is a public figure for the purposes of affair. Here's my thing. I feel really, really bad for all the people that are like collateral damage in this.
I agree. 100%.
Like I think that he deserves to be humiliated and she deserves to be humiliated because of the stupidity of this and because of their positions and the unethical
Yes.
I can't like be moralistic about like, I don't know, marriage is weird and people have affairs. And like you don't know the terms of people's like marriages, if they're monogamous, if they're like open, and so I don't like to really be judgmental of other people's
Totally agree.
relationships. Like the terms of their relationship are not really my business. Where I think that this is something that I don't feel bad about sort of reveling in is the like unethical, unprofessional aspect of it.
And the stupidity.
Yeah.
They took people from work
Yeah.
to an event where they were like, I don't know, prom posing and watching Coldplay. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Also, I do appreciate something that brings the internet together. Like people were pretty. There was some real creativity that this brought out in people.
I think it wasn't just about like marital infidelity, because if it was just two random people that were just like stepping out on their partners and they acted like guilty, then maybe it would have like gone mildly viral. But like I think that this kind of became this like layer cake of Schadenfreude, where it's like, okay, these two people were doing something they shouldn't have done and they got caught, and they acted really like they'd gotten caught.
Yes.
The people that got caught were people that have probably a lot of money and power. And so it's like, what? And they worked in tech, which there's a lot of resentment for right now.
Right.
I've seen online that she had recently, she like was on her second marriage and she'd left her first husband for her second husband, and they'd only gotten together a couple years ago. So it appears that she might be someone who like serially steps out, according to like the internet lore around this at this point. And like, so there's just kind of like, okay, layer cakes. And also like they didn't really release a statement. They just kind of like didn't know how to navigate this whatsoever. And it was at a Coldplay concert, which like sort of adds like a kind of cheesiness to it.
Yeah.
Even though like, look, we can all admit that a little Coldplay every now and then is sometimes just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, of course. But it's all just felt like a bit retro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to get busted and acting like they were at a Coldplay concert. Okay. They weren't at Beyonce. They weren't at Taylor Swift. They weren't at whatever's going on between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks right now. Okay.
God, that's
Whole
the
other
place.
thing.
That's the place you bring your mistress.
Right?
You bring them to a Fleetwood Mac concert.
And
okay?
then you get busted, and that's a little more interesting, right?
Yes.
This is just stupid. You were slow dancing prom style at a Coldplay show, acted like you were the most famous person on earth with their mistress who just got busted. And come on.
It also is like more details that like enhance the fact that they were being like pretty irresponsible. Apparently, Chris Martin, lead singer of Coldplay, warns people. He's like, "We're going to take a look at the crowd." Like he announces before they do that. Right. So if you're like, finger blasting your secretary or whatever, like you're going to want to cut that out before they start. Or you're doing a line off your wrist, you're going to want to like cut that out until they're done with the segment. Another thing is like the way that kiss cams work, and I learned this.
Please tell the story.
It was a long time ago. It was the last season that the Metrodome was where the Minnesota Twins were playing, and I was at home visiting. At the time, my brother was an intern for the St. Paul Saints, which is a minor league baseball team. And so he got to help a lot with like on-field operations because whatever. And so we're sitting there. I'm sitting next to my brother, and my sister's on the other side of my brother. And I was like, I'm so curious how like the kiss cam works, or how like these little fan cam situations work. And my brother was like, okay, so the camera operators where the Saints were playing would like, they have this ability to kind of like map where people are so they can like note it and then come back to it. So during like the game, they go around and they look for people that are like talking to each other and using a lot of hand gestures and seem very engaged. So my brother is like demonstrating this. So like if you're a cameraman and you see somebody like two people doing blah, 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 and then they like mark it. And then when it's time for the kiss cam, they'll like do, you know, they'll go back to those couples. They don't just like pan around randomly. Cool. Okay. Next break in the action, the kiss cam comes up in the Metrodome. I'm on the kiss cam with my brother.
What do you do?
I thought I would do something funny and cool, but instead I just like covered my face and ducked down, and my brother and my sister high-fived over my back.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it was like, but that's how that at the time that's how the kiss cam worked. So those people likely were in the run-up to that segment canoodling enough that like the camera operators were like, okay,
Clocked
these
it.
people, these people, these people. So like, yeah, it's, I mean, maybe they use AI now, but in the back in the day, it was like a manual decision. So like, who knows what tomfoolery they were up to before that kiss cam segment. So
did you see that Coldplay announced that they'll have a special spot in all of their concerts going forward for people who are doing shady business?
It's so funny.
I mean, that's the thing. What I feel terrible to stipulate for everybody's families involved. Like, this was so wrong of them. But this has like brought out some of the best of the internet.
I think this is an eat the rich moment. I'm gonna generously read this as an eat the rich moment. My like dark side version of this is like, we're all one, like, in our lives. Think about all the dumb shit you've done in public.
100%.
In your life. And now we live in a time where we're never reliably not being recorded. Like, Gen Z has their phones out all the fucking time. It's like, why are you recording strangers? You guys are weird people.
It's true.
But it's true. Now we live in a time where there's cameras, Ring cameras. There's security cameras. There's people with the camera in their hand. There's like, you don't know when and how you're being recorded. And you don't know who has access to that footage. And you don't know if it's hackable. You don't know if law enforcement can. So like, I just think like it's a good lesson for like, if you're doing something that you don't want everybody to watch, like, don't do it in a place where there's any possibility of you being recorded, which is unfortunately for now in most public places. Like, one of my favorite things when I lived in New York City, I could get a good cry in on my walk to the subway, you know? Like, I was having a hard day.
Yeah.
Could get a cry. Like, when I worked at the Daily Beast, and our office was like that Frank Gehry building at like near Chelsea Piers.
Yep.
And the walk from there to the train was like 3 long blocks, right? But barely anybody on that walk. That was such a great cry route. I could just cry if I needed to. By the time I was at the subway, tears were starting to dry. It was great. I feel like now people don't have that ability anymore.
So funny you say that. My walk to Vice, I used to take the New York Waterway. I took the ferry to Williamsburg.
That's so cute. I love that.
Honestly, the ferry is the greatest mode of transportation. But it's true, because when I got to Williamsburg, back then, this is 10 years ago, it was a very desolate ride. And I did cry a lot when I left Vice.
Yeah. I mean, but who hasn't like made out with someone in public that they were kind of dating, or who hasn't like taken a hit of Molly at a concert? You know, like, there's so many things that I feel like people, we don't have the freedom to be dumbasses like we used to. And I'm glad that the majority of my public embarrassing dumbassery is behind me, but I think it's an important reminder to people who are just entering their dumbass age to just like keep in mind like who could be watching.
Everyone's watching.
Everyone's watching all the time, even Coldplay.
Even Chris Martin.
Even Chris Martin. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back with Alyssa's interview with Bridget Read. Excited to hear this, Alyssa.
It's fun. Welcome back to Hysteria, the podcast that a pink Cadillac won't fool. Today's guest is a features writer at New York Magazine and the author of one of my favorite reads of 2025, Little Bosses Everywhere. Bridget Read, welcome to Hysteria.
Hey, Alyssa.
Bridget, I loved your book so much. From the minute I've been following like the pub date, like when it was going to come out, I was so excited because I feel I am very much of this era. Like, I was raised around what we're going to talk about today, which is MLMs. Everyone, Bridget's book. So for our listeners who are fortunate enough to have never had to really encounter a multi-level marketing or MLM, can you explain what they are and how they work?
Sure, which is, of course, the $1,000,000 question, right? And the whole
Right.
premise of the book is that the way we've all sort of been taught or not taught, just sort of through cultural osmosis, assume that these companies work is not how they work. But the quickest, dirtiest way is a multi-level marketing is like a regular door-to-door selling operation in that there's a bunch of independent contractors buying products at a discount, they sell them, and ostensibly they pocket the difference. That's sort of the simplest way to make money. But what's different about multi-level marketing is you can bring other people in under you, build a team, and supposedly make money off of what they're selling to, hence the multiple levels. And the idea is you can go really big. So if you're a really industrious salesperson, you can be really successful and bring a lot of people with you, and everyone's making money off of everyone else's success, right? That's the story. What's really happening is in multi-level marketing, people are paid based on what they buy and what the recruits under them are buying, not selling. And
Right.
that's a difference, which is why, it's long been plagued by accusations that multi-level marketing is virtually no different from a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
And the book really is exploring that. And I think if you look at the evidence, there's a lot that says there really isn't a difference. But that's how it works. It's a lot of people buying products. The idea is that they could sell them, and ostensibly they do. But what's really happening is everyone is rewarded on what they're buying.
So, and like, I got to tell you, like, the history for listeners, if we get into it, but like, I'm like the New Deal and how the New Deal was like the birth of the independent contractor. I mean, like, this book is chock-a-block of like all the things. And so my question for you was like, what was your first introduction to MLMs? When did you know you were ready to write a full book on the subject?
Yeah, I wrote a short article about MLM during the pandemic in 2021 for New York Magazine. And, really it's just that there were way more questions than answers I had about this industry. And then at the same time, I felt like I really knew what it was, and I sort of assumed it was a scam. But when I challenged myself to, when you sit down and write an article, it's really different from like, oh, I'm just going to talk about this, or I sort of think I know about it. And you really, if you're a good journalist, you sit down and you say, okay, where did this come from? What is it? And, I sort of assumed that I could do that quickly because it was such an old, it seemed like this piece of Americana. So I thought, okay, I'll just do the little, your little survey graph. And that's like common when you write about any industry. And with MLM, I just said, what? What is this? Where does it come from? There's so many things about it that don't make sense. Like there's, old Forbes articles calling it a pyramid scheme. You look it up on, the FTC website and it says, well, it's not a pyramid scheme, but some are, but still don't do it. It was so contradictory and confusing. And I just thought, okay, this is sort of odd that there really isn't more mainstream sort of definitive reporting on this. And then really once I started digging and read some of the work of Bob Fitzpatrick, who's sort of the number one skeptic, has been writing about MLM since the 80s. That's when I really said, oh, there's a lot going on here. And I really couldn't tell the story in any other format but a book. I really needed that long to do it.
You did. It is. I mean, like you need that much space to get through all of this. What are some MLMs in culture that we know the name, but we wouldn't necessarily consider them an MLM?
So the world's oldest and most important multi-level marketing company is Amway. The first MLM ever was called Nutrilite. They sold vitamins in California, and Rich DeVos, as in Betsy DeVos's father-in-law, and Jay Van Andel, they were really successful Nutrilite recruiters, and they started their own company in Michigan called Amway. Amway eventually got so big it swallowed Nutrilite. So Amway is effectively the oldest MLM in the world, and it's all over the world now. Perhaps the second best known is Mary Kay, because she's really kind of a figure that has transcended MLM. She's has these self-help biographies that, are still bestsellers to this day. She's a big one. That's the Pink Cadillac. She's sold makeup. She's been dead for about 2 decades. Herbalife is a big one. And if you've followed, MLM news in recent years, there was the drama when Bill Ackman tried to short Herbalife during the Obama administration. Herbalife is an MLM. Avon and Tupperware did not start as MLM. They started as regular door-to-door selling outfits that didn't use that MLM structure. But eventually they did kind of transition that way when it became so obvious that doing that kind of business model is very lucrative. So that they've sort of trended towards the MLM model in recent years, but they didn't start that way. I mean, and you could just keep going. Cutco, Pampered Chef.
Nexium.
Yeah, right.
That was the one that
Nexium,
blew me.
yes.
I had not thought about that, but Nexium,
Yeah.
which we think of as a sex cult.
Yeah, Nixium was started by a former Amway distributor. Keith Raniere was in Amway before he did any branding of women and any of that. And then he tried a bunch of he had his own multi-level marketing company called, what is it? It's like Buyers. It was a coupon company. And he was like, it was shut down for being a pyramid scheme. And eventually he figured out, I'll just do self-help MLM, which is so much easier than having a product. And yeah, Nixium was structured, they were getting paid based on recruiting. So one of the lawyers that eventually he went after Herbalife, he also went after Keith Raniere. So imagine how he felt when Keith popped up, as the head of this sex cult. Yeah, it's a wonderful world, and they're all connected. That's the other important thing that my book lays out, is how rather than different kind of crooks figuring out this fraud in different ways, they actually are all connected like a kind of virus or like a map. You can really just draw them like a family tree. How Amway and Nutrilite started these other companies, which turned into Herbalife in one corner of the country. How Amway gets to Nixium.
Right.
The Mormon
And Mary
companies
Kay.
have their own. Yep.
Right?
Mary Kay is part of that as well. Yep. And Mary Kay. Successful Mary Kay uplines have started their own businesses too. So it's really this whole, map of scam all over the world.
So there's so much here. So in the book, you get into how I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think 75% of people who participate in MLMs are women.
That's the industry figure, and it's long been that way. I think that's probably true. I do think just based on how many young people are looking for extra income, how many like crypto and financial scams I think are their own MLMs. I think there's probably more men now, like the distribution is a little more even. The industry loves saying that it's full of single moms and struggling women. So I actually think the female dominance is a little bit overplayed, and we really don't have good data on MLM because it's all self-reported. So, but yes, it's certainly predominantly women and has been since the 60s.
Hysteria is brought to you by the NPR Politics Podcast. Boy, have you ever been at a party, Alyssa, and you start bringing up politics, or you're like in a conversation and you start bringing up politics because you're thinking about it a lot, and you can see the person just kind of mentally recoiling. I mean, but at the same time, it's so important to be engaged with politics while understanding that it can be unpleasant to spend too much time dwelling in, right?
Totally.
And that's why the NPR Politics Podcast is where I go to decode what goes down in Washington and what every decision out there might mean for me and for you. Every day, the NPR Politics Podcast team will focus on one thing and boil it down to 15 minutes or less. Think of it as your political multivitamin. That means not too much time spent in the cesspool.
Not too much. But also, go out educated. Know what you're talking about.
Exactly. There is a lot of stuff out there that is completely false and just basically fanfic that people are making up. NPR Politics Podcast is a reliable source of good information. They'll give it to you straight, and they won't spend too much time on it. Listen now to the NPR Politics Podcast, only from NPR, wherever you get podcasts.
Do you ever look at political headlines and go, huh? Well, that's exactly why the NPR Politics Podcast exists. We're experts, not just on politics, but in making politics make sense. Every episode, we decode everything that happened in Washington and help you figure out what it all means. Give politics a chance with the NPR Politics Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an ad for BetterHelp. Alyssa, workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health, with 61% of the global workforce experiencing higher than normal levels of stress.
Wow.
Does that make sense to you?
It does.
In your life, was your workplace like contributing to your overall level of stress?
At a certain point in my life, it was quite a it was a source of angst.
Yeah, there's something so all-encompassing about workplace stress.
Because you can't avoid it. Like you have to go to your job. You have to do your job.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of jobs now are like essentially 24/7 because people can reach you wherever you are. You can get an email from your boss at like 7 p.m. on a Friday being like, I need you to turn this thing around. And it's like, why? I mean, that's not my current situation, but I've been in situations like that in the past. It's not great. And sometimes it can feel inescapable. And that is not a mentally healthy space to be in. That is why having a therapist, having somebody to talk to is important because it's not going to make your boss suck less. It's not going to make your job less stressful, but it's going to help you.
Talk about it. Get some tools. That's what happened to me when I had a particularly bad period in my work life. I needed help. And I wasn't going to get there on my own. And I talked to someone and they helped me with some medication. And then I quit that job. But I needed someone to help me understand that I couldn't work there anymore.
And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you need somebody to help you understand that you can work there. And there's just other things that you can be doing to manage what's happening, right? Or like there are ways for you to deal with people that are like overstepping boundaries. Like boundaries were a thing that were tough for me to enforce, I think.
Yeah, me too.
I think a lot of girls are brought up to believe that they need to be like good, and being good is making people happy, and making people happy sometimes means just letting them
being always available.
Yeah, always available, and like letting people talk to you however they're going to talk to you and not making anybody uncomfortable ever. And that is something that I needed therapy to help deprogram. So as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diversity of expertise. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/hysteriapod. That's betterhelp.com/hysteriapod.
And one of the things that I was reading in your book, I learned how the MLMs have deep roots, both tied to conservatism, like you mentioned, the DeVos, and Christianity. And in the book you wrote, MLM helped power the modern conservative movement's most effective, unseen propaganda factory, indoctrinating its spiritual warriors on a crusade for capitalism. How did they get these deep roots? How did this
dramatic.
It was. Listen, the book's dramatic, but it's because it's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, the birth of MLM was also, again, not to go high drama, but really like the birth of sort of the modern American century, right? The American era, that post-war, started with the Eisenhower era and this time of abundance, record productivity, and then extreme increases in quality of life for many Americans, certainly not all. But that's really the story we tell about that moment in American history, and that is when MLM also started. But if you dig a little further, the men who started MLM were kind of part of this right. At that time it was the extreme right. Now it doesn't feel extreme at all. But these extremely purist, free enterprise thinkers who saw the New Deal consensus that was established after the Great Depression, that really changed, the ways workers were being treated by their employers, established the welfare state, right? All of that had happened in the 30s and 40s. And there was already a set of capitalists who found that unacceptable, right? Who found Social Security as a concept abhorrent. They felt that it really reined in capital in a way that simply would actually undo American capitalism and, bring us even maybe to socialism and communism, which at the time was so much more of a real threat than it feels now. And so really these guys, and, some of them, for example, Leonard Read, who's a libertarian thinker, he was at the first MLM's 10th anniversary, right? So that shows the sort of association of these guys. They were reading this material, and really they're very open that they wanted a project that would rebrand that free market, unregulated, sort of rampant capitalism. You could, go all the way back and say it's like Adam Smith and the free hand of the market, right? So no regulation, no, the FTC, the FDA, all these organizations agencies that were created to really police and rein in capitalism and private companies for the benefit of citizens, right?
Right.
That we're going to get rid of all that, go back to a Gilded Age, a sort of robber baron era, but instead of, characterizing it that way, we're going to characterize it as freedom and democracy. So it's these seeds of pseudo-populism that's really actually what they wanted to create was back to an era of rampant inequality and dynastic American capitalism, right? The trusts of these guys who had huge amounts of money. But we're going to do it all dressed up in this language of freedom and the individual. And MLM is that structure on steroids. You know, every single person, the way you're sold this compensation system is that even if you're at the bottom of someone else's pyramid, the way that you're going to be successful and the promise is that you could be at the top of your own. So it's really like, I say it's propaganda because it takes all of the grist that one might use to create unrest or even create revolution, right? Unhappiness and skepticism of elites, unhappiness with institutions, feeling that the system as it is now is rigged and unfair, and I'll never succeed, and I don't feel valued by society. And it takes that. Mm-hmm. And instead of seeding, possibly solidarity with my fellow class compatriots and comrades, right? It actually teaches you to just try to turn yourself into your own little boss. So instead of the structure is a pyramid, there's a boss at the top and a bunch of people paying up to that boss. Instead of getting mad about that structure, we're all just going to work on being the top of our own little, dynastic, machine of wealth and concentrate on exploiting others. And it has really been so successful. It's been around for 80 years. And once you start to track these threads and how they lead to Betsy DeVos, to Donald Trump, we can really see how it has helped change people's hearts and minds so that they're not offended by the extreme inequality that has now come to characterize the makeup of our country. People are actually, they think that it will lead to their own freedom rather than their own degradation, which is, again, hard for people on the left to understand. And writing this book helped me understand that.
Well, one of the stories that you talk about, so you have a lot of sort of human faces to the MLM, and you follow a recurring subject, Monique, who lost $75,000 trying to climb the ranks of Mary Kay. How did you find Monique, and why was her story specifically so important for you to highlight?
I really wanted to understand on the sort of most granular level possible how MLM works. Mm-hmm. And I talked to all kinds of people for the book, but I did want to really lay out one person's journey so that you could see exactly how somebody gets into this. Because it's really easy to say, oh, I would never pay hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars a month. If I'm not getting anything back, I would leave. And so really tracking her story felt very important to show how that happens, how the indoctrination is kind of a slow burn, all the kind of sunk cost fallacy that then keeps her in it. And I wanted somebody who hadn't left a company yet and was sort of full of animosity and criticism for it. That there is a robust kind of ex-MLM community. They call themselves anti-MLMers, and they're really wonderful. They're almost like a pseudo kind of deprogramming group. Mm-hmm. They, people who leave find each other on Reddit and on Instagram and YouTube, and they help each other. But I wanted someone who was still maybe a little more neutral on the subject, so I could really actually ask her, like, what are you getting out of this? And she was still able to say. And so I found her lurking on a YouTube video, I think, and she had just started saying, I don't know if Mary Kay is working for me anymore. And so she was still had access to all of her kind of back office. Like, I was able to go into her Mary Kay account so I could see how much she was spending, see her downline being tracked there, and really see the biggest thing is that they weren't tracking what she was selling at all. They were taking what she was buying, calling those purchases, and doing that up front. And the fact that an American business is allowed to do that, it's shocking to me, but it's true. And so yeah, she was a great person to go really deep with. And the fact that she was a woman of color and a veteran, she was vulnerable in so many ways to this discourse. She felt like, I think she had very little control over her own life, and Mary Kay really made her feel like she could regain a sense of control and become valued, be a member of society, that instead of feeling like she didn't matter, that instead she could have a purpose, which is, of course, like incredibly insidious to tap into that and then drain her of her wealth, drain her of her time and energy, you know.
Well, one of the things that was interesting about Monique's story is that when you read it, the way that Mary Kay recruited her, in her story, at least in the reading, it's a lot about how like the Klan recruits people. You know, like they find people who are down on their luck, who are lacking community, who really are on the verge of hopelessness. And they give them just a couple of crumbs. Here's how you can turn everything around. Here's how we'll take care of you. We'll be your community. You attended a Mary Kay conference in 2023. What was that like?
It felt really important to do because MLM is such an insular place. It's a very closed to the outside world. You know, conventions, you have to be signed up to attend, which I did not do because you sign really draconian, you know, non-disparagement clauses when you sign up to be a distributor. So I was told by more than one First Amendment lawyer, don't do that. So I just went in Dallas and again, trying to understand the thing that feels ununderstandable, which is how can so many women do this? Knowing, you know, everyone's in the room celebrating these sales and they know they're actually purchases. They know that at the end of the month, these women are literally like putting purchases of their, you know, downline on their own credit cards just to meet these qualifications. They have dozens of products sitting in their basements, and like the dissonance of that, I really wanted to try to understand that. And, you know, it was really moving. Like it was a place where women, there's this confessional aspect to MLM and to being together where women are always talking about what they're going through, their struggles. And so there was just a lot of sharing of illnesses, of family members' illnesses, of, you know, women whose husbands were serving overseas, of people who had, you know, sick kids, sick parents, like a lot of social ills, many of which are systemic. But of course, instead of addressing them systemically, like the products of policy or the products of inequality, structural inequality, you treat them as something that can be changed from within, can be transcended if you just are with your sisters and you get the right mantra and you have this one magic moment of almost like ecstatic kind of conversion where you get back to the grindstone, like, oh, I'm going to really sell this year. And people were very convincing that would work. And honestly, you know, I think everybody has things about their life they'd want to change. And when you go all the way up the chain and you think, well, the reason, you know, XYZ in my life isn't working is because of this massive social inequity that's way out of my control and stems all the way back to the 80s or whatever. It is easier to think, well, I can actually just fix it myself if I'm just the best version of myself and I have the right mindset and I'm a girl boss and all that. So I got it. I understood. It's really like sublimating so much unhappiness. And instead of taking that and thinking about redistribution, which of course is the absolute enemy, right, of not just the right wing and those guys I was talking about earlier who have now become the mainstream of the Republican Party, but all manner of elites, right, don't want to change that pyramid structure that we have. Again, it takes that energy and says, instead, just concentrate on building your own pyramid, which of course we don't all have the option to do and probably haven't had it for, you know, a century at least, right?
Wow. Bridget, thank you for joining me on Hysteria. Listeners, check out Bridget's book, Little Bosses Everywhere. It is a fascinating, like you said, it's a dense read, but it's something we all know just a little bit about. And the more that I learned, like I said, I took tons of notes and I thought it was excellent and I loved it. So thank you so much.
It's a beach read if you like taking notes at the beach, you know?
Yeah, the highlighter. Just bring the right color highlighter.